Today I'm looking at the Arun indicator and I'm showing how to write the code for this indicator. I've got MetaTrader 4 open here and the Arun indicator showing in the bottom here. It does show in a separate window and it shows two lines, one showing the strength of a downward trend and the other showing the strength of the upward trend. There is an Investopedia article on this Arun indicator that gives more detail in how it operates, and I'll leave a link in the description to the Investopedia article. Basically, this indicator isn't using the price from the charts at all. It is simply using the distance from the current candle to the most recent highest high or the most recent lowest low within a given range. And based on the distance from those candles, it determines whether we're in a strong uptrend or downtrend. And it actually displays both on the chart at the same time. It's not necessarily an indicator that you would use as the sole basis for your strategy, but it is a good indicator to add in if you want some kind of confirmation of direction and strength of trend. So let's go to the editor now and we'll begin writing the code. I'm in the MT4 editor here and I already have the outline of the indicator written. You could have used the wizard if you like to create this. I'm copying these from templates because I don't like the format that the wizard produces. I've also added here to the original description, I just added a description of what the indicator is about and from Investopedia, and I've included the reference to the Investopedia article, and this paragraph just comes directly from that article. Being MT4, I've included hash properties strict, and then I've got the standard copyright link version and the description, a brief description of the Arun indicator here. Other than that, there is just the onInit function and the onCalculate, which you'll also see if you've created this using the wizard. Now this indicator shows two lines on the screen and it shows them in a separate window. By separate window, I mean it doesn't show on the main chart where you see the price candles. So I set those properties up with the hash property statements. Indicator separate window says that it's going to be in that second window, and then I use property indicator buffers to indicate that I have two values to show on screen. I'm going to set some default values of the way these lines are actually displayed on the screen. I'll just switch back to the indicator in MetaTrader 4 and show what I'm talking about. You can see the indicator here has the yellow and the red lines. If I look at the properties here in the colors tab, there is the yellow line and the red line. They show a width, which I've set to 3 here at the moment, and a style, which is just a straight line at the moment. So those are values that you can change in this dialog box, and I'm going to be setting the default values for those in the code. So with the first line, these are hash property statements, indicator type 1, draw line, color 1, style, width, and label. I'm changing this to a yellow line, it's a solid line. I'm making the width 3, which is probably a little bit wide, but it shows up better in the video. And the label is up. Now I'm going to do the same for the second line, and I'll just note at this point I have two buffers, so they are going to be numbers 1 and 2 in these definitions, but when I get down into the code and I begin to refer to the buffer numbers, the numbers will be 0 based. So within the code, 0 is the same as 1 here. So I'll just copy this and make some changes rather than write all of that again. So I've copied and changed. I've changed the line number to 2. It is 2 in all of these property statements. The color is now red, and the label says down. Also, if we go back to MetaTrader 4 again, you can see these horizontal lines at levels. This is effectively an oscillator. It ranges between 0 and 100. So I'm able to set these levels at given values and know that they'll be applicable. And this is a little bit similar to the RSI where you might have an upper level and a lower level. I'm going to be setting these at 70, 50, and 30. So to set the levels, level 1, 2, and 3, I simply set the values there at 70, 50, and 30 with the hash property statement. I want those lines to be silver. I'm using the level color statement for silver, and the level style statement, I'm setting those to dotted lines. Now I have inputs for the indicator, and there are only 2 inputs for this indicator. So the first input is the period, which is defaulting to 25 for the Arun indicator, and that is simply how many bars I'm going to look at to find the highest high and how many bars I'm looking at to find the lowest low. So I'm going to be looking for the high or the low within 25 bars of each bar that I'm plotting on screen. And then shift is simply going to shift the indicator if I use that. The indicator has two buffers, so I need to set two arrays of type double, which will map to those buffers. So I'm just declaring here buffer up and buffer down. These are dynamic arrays because the size will be set based on the number of bars on screen, and these are type double. And now moving into the onInit function, I need to associate these buffer arrays with the buffer numbers. And remember that now, because I'm inside the code, and I have no idea why this is, but where these are 1 based, the numbers are going to be 0 based inside the code. So first, the setIndexBuffer statement actually associates this array with buffer number 0. So setIndexBuffer, buffer number, array, and this is of type indicator data, which means that it is data that's going to be displayed on the screen. I'm also setting the shift, so if you've used the shift with the setIndexShift, again, buffer number 0, and that will apply whatever shift you have entered as the input. And setIndexDrawBegin, again for buffer number 0, INP period. The default 25 means that it doesn't make any sense to actually plot this indicator within the first 25 bars to the far left of the chart. Now it's probably not worth worrying about, but I just do this for neatness. So setIndexDrawBegin means that it won't plot anything within that distance of the far left bar, which is way off to the side of the screen anyway. And now I need to do the same for the second buffer. So I'll just copy these and edit. So I've copied this, and the only changes, the buffer number has changed from 0 to 1, and I'm using buffer down, which is the second array here. Other than that, these statements are all the same as they were for the first buffer. And now I also want to set that little piece of data that's displayed in the top left corner of the indicator. Let me go back to MetaTrader again. Here in the top left corner, you can see it says Arun 25, 0. So those are my inputs, 25 and 0. And then 44, 72 are the values of the up and the down buffer at current bar number 0. First thing I'm doing is creating a variable that has the name of the indicator. I'm using the string format so that I can use a template, and that is going to be Arun bracket %i as a placeholder, comma %i, so that's two integer placeholders, and I'm filling those with the period and the shift as specified. Then I'm setting that as the name of the indicator with the indicator set string, indicator under shortener, indicator underscore short name, and the indicator name. And then for those two values, which are the most recent value, I don't want to display a series of decimal places. So I'm using indicator set integer, indicator digits, comma 0. And that sets 0 decimal places. And that finishes the onInit function. And now into the onCalculate function. Since I'm looking for the highest high and lowest low within 25 bars, 25 is the default number, or whatever is specified as INP period, it doesn't make any sense to perform the calculation or do any further work if I don't have that many values available. The two key values that are passed into onCalculate here are rates total, which tells me how many total rates are available, and that's actually the number of bars that are available. And then prevCalculated, each time I come into this function, that will tell me, based on this return value, how many values I've already processed. So firstly, if rates total is less than INP period, then I really can't perform any calculations. So here, if rates total is less than INP period minus 1, return 0. That 0 will come back next time as prevCalculated, which means that I will try to process again. And this will keep looping through at each tick until eventually that passes and carries on with the rest of the code. Now next, I don't want to process every bar every time this is called, so I can use the difference between rates total and prevCalculated to know how many bars I haven't already processed, and I need to make some small adjustments to that. So again, I have this variable count, which is going to tell me how many bars I need to process, and I'm setting that up initially as rates total minus prevCalculated. But then because I always want to reprocess bar number 0, if prev calculated is greater than 0, I'm incrementing count by 1. So that will force me to always calculate bar number 0, and if a new bar has formed, then it will also force me to calculate bar number 1 again as a kind of last calculation for a bar that may have modified since the last time this was called. And then here, if count is greater than rates total minus INP period plus 1. What I'm saying there is basically, if I'm trying to perform count into that range where I don't have enough bars to the left to calculate that 25 highest or lowest, then I'm simply setting count equal to rates total minus INP period plus 1. So it's sort of like using a min statement, and I could have done this with a min statement, but I'm doing it with an if statement instead. Once I have that, I have a standard loop then through those bars. So for int I equals count minus 1, so count tells me how many bars I have to process, but those bars are 0 indexed, so count minus 1 is the first. While I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. So I'm counting down from left to right. And now I want to get the bar number of that highest high or lowest low within INP period bars of bar number I. So start with the highest, int highest. This will give me the bar number of the highest bar. I'm using the iHighest function, using the chart symbol and the chart period. I'm looking at mode underscore high. These are the high prices. You can call the iHighest function with a different array of prices, so you could call it with the open or the close prices, but I'm looking at the highest high. Looking at a range that is the size INP period, beginning with bar number I. And it's possible that the highest bar is bar number I, so this would return I. And then the same thing for the lowest, but here I'm just calling the iLowest function and mode low to look at the lowest prices. So after these two statements, highest and lowest will contain the bar numbers of the highest price high bar or the lowest price low bar within INP period bars of bar number I. Now if we go back to the Investopedia entry, and I can show you the formula here. The formula for the Arun up is 25, which is my INP period. So INP period minus the number of periods since the high, which could be 0 if the current bar number is the high, divided by INP period and multiplied by 100. And the down is the same thing, but using the low value. So back to the code, and I can put those values directly into the up and down buffers. So here I have INP period 25 minus the distance from the highest bar to the current bar, which as I said could be 0, divided by INP period multiplied by 100. And the same for buffer down, but I'm using the distance to the lowest bar. And then all that remains is to close the loop and return rates total, and that value for rates total that I return here will come back next time inside this prev calculated value. So that's how I avoid recalculating bars again and again. We'll do a quick compile to make sure that works. Now we can go to MetaTrader 4. Here it is. This is the last compiled version. And if I look at a position, say here, just get that over a bar, you can see that I have a very high on the red indicator, on the down indicator. And that is because this bar, if I can just get it lined up, is actually the lowest low within 25 bars to the left. So because that's the lowest low within 25 bars, then that difference between the bars is 0, and therefore this comes up with a value of 100. If I move just a couple of bars to the left, you can see that there is another bar less than 25 bars away, and therefore the downward direction is down at 0. And so that's the way the Arun indicator works. It, as I said, doesn't have anything to do with the actual price, just the relative high or low of the current bar to the most recent 25 bars. Not necessarily an indicator you'll want to use on its own, but it might be useful to use for confluence with other indicators as part of your trading strategy. I hope you found this useful. If you have, then click the like button, and if you want to see more of our videos, click subscribe. So until next time, thank you for watching.